Alright, so let's talk about Luocha. In my previous video, I talked about how good Silver Wolf will be, and it's only appropriate to talk about Luocha now. Luocha is going to be the third healer that will come to the game, making him a pretty valuable choice for those who don't have Bailu or other sustained characters like Gepard. So how does he compare to other healers like Natasha or Bailu? Well, before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about his skill. And excuse me for the background gameplay since I lost all of my Luocha recording from CBT2. This random memory of chaos gameplay right here will have to take place sadly. Okay, so his first skill, Prayer of an Abyss Flower, is a single target healing that scales out of his attack and has a huge flat healing number that comes with it. This ability will also trigger once every 2 turns if any of your ally is below 50% HP. Really cool. He will also gain 1 stack of Abyss Flower every time he uses this skill or triggers it. So what is this Abyss Flower that I'm talking about? That, my friend, is how his talent works. His talent will project a field once you get 2 stacks of Abyss Flower, and once an enemy is inside that field, all ally that attacks the enemies within that field will get a heal that scales out of Luocha's attack. And once you're already at Ascension 4 on him, this heal is AoE. Well, it's really cool. It's pretty broken in fact. Other than his skill, his ultimate also gives you a stack of Abyss Flower. His ultimate is an AoE damage dealing skill that dispels enemies buff. So basically Payless skill but AoE. Okay, so that's his kit done. It's just a really quick breakdown right there. Before we get into the numbers of Luocha's healing, I want to talk about his potential and his weaknesses first though. First, let's start with his weaknesses. I feel like Luocha's healing is not something that is as reliable as Bailu's or Natasha's healing. His healing amount though is not something to scoff at, it's pretty insane. But the thing is that his talent requires some more planning to activate than something like Natasha's or Bailu's healing. Without his ultimate, this means activating his talent requires 2 skill points, except if you have an ally below 50% of their HP. Just by looking at his kit, it seems like he's not going to be the most skill point friendly healer. Don't get me wrong though, he's not going to be a skill point negative character whatsoever. It's just that he requires more skill points to work when compared to the other healers, for example. His ultimate is also going to be a nice addition to his Abyss Flower supply, and his ultimate Dispel is also going to be really good in contents like Memory of Chaos when there's going to be a lot of enemies that uses buffs, like the small ball that gives the whole enemy waves an attack buff, for example. You can just strip it right away with his ultimate. His Dispel is going to be a really nice tool, and a really good one at that, I'm sure of it, and being the second character to be able to do that in the game, and an AoE to boot, is really nice. He's also going to be building attacks, so without a doubt, he's going to be the squishiest healer in the game, so just keep that in mind before you use him. A nice thing that he also has in his tool is that he can resist CC debuff for 70%. So even though he's squishy, at least he will be able to move more often than other healers thanks to this trace right here. And from what I learned from CBT2 is that while his talent is active, it seems that he can't get any stack of Abyss Flower, so expect some downtime between his talent activation. Well, if there's no downtime, he will be pretty broken. Another thing to keep in mind is that when you use him, you can plan his talent and save it up when the enemy does a big AoE attack. But his biggest potential in my opinion is if you pair him up with someone that does a lot of follow-up attack. I'm assuming that his talent also procs with follow-up attack here, so pairing him up with someone like Lara can be a really good option. You can also pair him up with Himiko and Herta, for example, for the follow-up attack combo. Someone like Blade in the future is also going to be a perfect match for him, since Blade can easily go below 50% of HP to proc Luocha's skill, and he does a lot of follow-up attack. Arlan can be a really good choice to use with him. As bad as Arlan might be as a DPS, he is a character that can easily go below 50% HP and does not consume any skill point. So he's a really good character to mitigate Luocha's skill point requirement, and allows you to bring skill point hungry DPS like Sila, Shushang, or a high-speed Dan Heng into your team. Okay, so that's great, but that doesn't matter, right, if Luocha himself is not healing enough to keep your team alive. Well, the good news is, even though he has the hardest healing to control and the squishiest healer out of all of them, his healing number is the best out of all 3 options in the near future. So I made some calculations here. In this calculation, all 3 healers cast their skill 2 times and an ultimate, while Luocha will be activating his talent. So this actually simulates a battle over 5 cycle where the healer actually does an auto attack after a skill for 2 times. I made it so that in the 2 turn that Luocha's talent is active, all ally except 1 team member will attack at least once per turn. So 7 talent proc for Luocha. And in this calculation, I also count Bailu's Invigoration to proc 6 times. As you can see here, his number is the highest. Bailu's healing could go higher than this if all of her Invigoration procs, but Luocha would still come out on top if he triggers his skill automatically once. So their healing power is kind of equal on certain conditions, but like I said, his healing is not something that is very controllable and might not be there when you need it the most. So, how good will Luocha be? Outside of the numbers and all, this is going to be a fully speculative section right here. For me, unless you have a team in mind for the future to abuse his talent. So if you have Clara or planning to pull for Blade in the future, he's just another healer in my opinion. But his ultimate AoE dispel might help you a lot in Memory of Chaos. And if you don't have Bailu or Japard, he's a solid choice. So that is my conclusion right there. And that is pretty much it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel. And as usual guys, stay broke and keep playing gacha game.